If you're an executive, maybe a sales leader, and you're tasked with scaling revenue, let me ask you something. Think about those early morning networking clubs. When you really calculate the cost, the time your team spends there, trading leads, is the growth you get back actually measurable? Or are you maybe just subsidizing activity that doesn't really move the needle?
Yeah, that calculation, that return on time, is exactly what we're diving into today. We've pulled together some really powerful insights from analysis by the sales experts. And honestly, it's a bit of a tough reality check.
Yeah.
The big challenge here is this common idea, this assumption really, that general business networking clubs are a serious sales strategy for established companies,
Mm-hmm.
especially those aiming for, aggressive, scalable sales success.
Exactly. So our mission today is to kind of move past the, let's say, comfort of just casual intros. We want to uncover why real business development, particularly for high growth firms, it really relies on structured selling, on clear strategy, and frankly, the courage to go after the right accounts. We need to figure out where that valuable time should actually be spent.
Right. And what jumps out immediately from the analysis is the cost difference. It's profound.
Hmm.
For a business that's scaling up, joining one of these formal networking groups is a significant investment of time.
Mm.
And it's not just the meeting itself, right? It's the follow-up, the one-to-ones, the mandatory participation stuff.
Takes up a lot of
It
hours.
really does.
Uh,
And the source argues pretty definitively that if your company's trying to hit quarterly targets, maybe manage a, say, $5 million pipeline, the opportunity cost is just too high. That time spent passing little referrals, it's time not spent advancing those complex B2B sales cycles.
okay, so if the return isn't really there for, let's call them established companies, who is benefiting? Who does this passive networking actually serve well?
It definitely serves a specific audience, and they deserve it, don't get me wrong. It's the micro businesses, the self-employed folks. Think about your local service providers, the insurance agent down the street, maybe a financial planner, the local chiropractor. Their model relies on getting a steady trickle of local
Like
clients.
trickle, right.
They need those localized, often immediate sort of non-complex transactions.
Oh, okay. If your goal is hitting seven figures, maybe eight figures on a contract, navigating those really complex procurement processes with multiple stakeholders, winning substantial recurring revenue, a steady trickle is, well, it's basically irrelevant, isn't it?
That's the absolute critical disconnect for the executives listening in. The vast majority of members you'll find in popular groups like, say, BNI or For Networking,
Mm.
they're inherently one-person companies with limited budgets. That's just the reality. They operate on tight finances, and crucially, they have, and I quote, no ability to give you substantial contracts. They simply don't operate in a spending league that can feed real growth for a scaling firm.
The source material actually gives this brilliant, almost undeniable visual check for executives. Like, next time you happen to drive past a venue hosting one of these networking breakfasts, just picture the room. How many companies in there have more than, say, 10 employees? How many are run with professional procurement departments calling the shots?
Yeah, the analysis points out you'll see almost none.
Mhm.
And that observation kind of tells the whole story right there. Established businesses, the ones focused on real scale, they don't rely on this kind of casual networking. Why? Because they operate under a completely different mandate from the top. Sales managers, VPs of sales, they're held accountable for pipeline health, for qualification criteria, for closed deals, not just, a growing stack of business cards that might not lead anywhere. They expect their teams to actually sell.
Okay, so let's accept that premise for a moment, that high-value teams maybe need to be pulled out of these passive clubs. Where is the serious revenue then? Where is it actually being generated? Let's shift gears, section 2. What does that high-level structured strategy look like inside those successful growing companies? What are the real pillars of growth?
Well, what's fascinating and frankly encouraging is that success here is it's pretty predictable because it's measurable. When you connect this to the bigger picture, the really successful companies, they rely on three clear proactive pillars. First, a robust, structured sales process, defined steps. Second, a really clear sales and marketing strategy. They know exactly who they're trying to reach. And third, they actually fund and execute targeted new business development campaigns. Proactive outreach.
Okay, let's unpack that first one a bit, the structured sales process, because that sounds like where executive oversight really starts, right? What makes it structured when we're talking high-value deals?
Structured means moving beyond just, luck or having a charismatic salesperson. So that helps. A structured process demands really rigorous qualification, often using frameworks, maybe like metrics, economic buyer, decision process, pain points, implications, finding a champion. Executives have got to make sure their CRM isn't just a glorified address book. It has to reflect real-time stage gates in the deal. If a deal isn't properly qualified using these kinds of metrics, the team needs to be trained and, frankly, empowered to disqualify it quickly. Cut the losses.
Right, get rid of the noise early.
Exactly, because time wasted chasing poor prospects. It's exactly the same cost as spending time at a networking event that yields nothing.
That makes a lot of sense. Efficiency, predictability. So how do the other two pillars, the strategy and the targeted campaigns, how do they make sure that the ROI is actually measurable against the, let's face it, significant cost of a good sales team?
Well, targeted campaigns are pretty much the polar opposite of general networking, aren't they? Instead of just hoping a good prospect wanders into your orbit at breakfast, you define your ideal customer profile, your ICP, based on size, industry, maybe the tech they use, specific pain points you know you can solve. And successful companies, they use technology for this. Advanced data analytics, maybe intent signal tracking, dedicated account-based marketing, or ABM tools. They use these to build very specific lists. And then, and this is key, they measure the ROI of every single campaign. How much did that data cost? How many contacts did we reach out to? What was the actual pipeline generated from this effort? You fundamentally cannot measure the ROI of spending a year handing out business cards hoping for the best.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here. Isn't there a risk? Like if you pull teams completely out of these more grassroots local groups, do you risk losing that local flavor? Or maybe missing out on some key industry chatter or intelligence? How does the source address that potential gap?
That's a really fair point, and it comes up. The source isn't saying cut it all networking. Not at all. It's arguing for a strategic reallocation of that time and effort. Real networking, the kind that benefits serious companies, still happens. But it happens in completely different places, different environments.
Okay, like where? Give me some examples.
Instead of those general local mixers, established firms focus their efforts on high-level strategic gatherings. They attend major industry events, big conferences, where the decision makers, their actual ideal prospects, are already gathered. And they're there, focused on sector-specific challenges. They also join serious business associations or maybe chambers of commerce that give them access to genuine peer-level companies, companies of similar scale. And they invest, often heavily, in building strategic reciprocal partnerships. But again, with businesses of similar size and scope, not necessarily smaller suppliers met over coffee.
Yeah, I like that the source material brings up that analogy. You mentioned groups like the London Chamber of Commerce. The observation there feels critical. Small companies and large companies, they rarely actually transact significant business together. It's like the big fish and small fish swim in separate tanks. You have to consciously decide which tank holds your next big client, your next $10 million deal, perhaps.
Absolutely. The environment really dictates the opportunity, doesn't it? If you want bigger clients, clients with much bigger budgets, you have to stop waiting for introductions from people who, let's be honest, probably don't even have the budget to be your client in a meaningful way. You've got to go where the real money is already being discussed, where those decisions are being made.
Okay, this leads us nicely into section 3 and the really actionable stuff for our listeners, the executives. What should leaders be telling their teams, maybe even mandating that they do, instead of just relying on those passive introductions from networking groups?
Okay, actionable insight number 1. It's the shift to a truly professional outreach strategy. And look, this isn't just about banging the phones more often. It's about quality research, driving proactive engagement. The source really stresses that modern outreach, whether it's phone calls, targeted emails, maybe LinkedIn engagement, it has to be highly personalized. Personalized to the target's recent company news, maybe specific regulatory pain points they're facing, or even recent executive hires. Not just a generic let's connect request. That level of diligence, it ensures that when your call or email actually lands, it immediately speaks to a critical, potentially C-suite level concern. It shows you've done your homework.
And then, okay, say you've done that homework, you've landed that crucial first meeting. What's insight number 2?
Insight number 2 is all about value and closing. Once you're in the door, the focus absolutely has to be on delivering a compelling value proposition, one that genuinely solves complex client problems. And, importantly, executives need to empower and teach their teams to actually close the business instead of waiting for introductions. And that takes sophisticated negotiation skills, real persistence, and the ability to navigate what's often a multi-stakeholder decision process in larger companies. It's a different skill set.
Right.
Which, raises an important question. It can be a bit uncomfortable sometimes. Why do so many smaller, maybe even mid-sized businesses cling so tightly to networking? Why is it so prevalent? The source identifies what it calls the biggest mistake. They're often using networking to effectively hide from real selling.
Ouch.
Hiding. Yeah. I mean, we've all seen it, haven't we? The sales rep who seems incredibly busy spending hours alphabetizing business cards or planning endless one-to-one coffees
Yeah.
just to avoid making that first, maybe slightly intimidating high-value cold call, that
Yeah.
feeling of being busy, that activity fallacy. That's exactly what the sales experts are warning leaders about. Deep down, it's often fear. Afraid to prospect, afraid of rejection, and ultimately, maybe just afraid to really sell assertively.
And that fear, sadly, it gets reinforced, doesn't it, by this, I think, quite dangerous myth that gets sold often to executives trying to build some sales momentum. You hear it all the time. Oh, it takes 2 or 3 years of networking to really see results.
Uh-huh. And often, let's be cynical for a second, that's just a sales line designed to make sure you keep paying those membership fees for 2 or 3 years. The reality, according to the analysis, is this. If your business offers a genuinely compelling value proposition, if it solves a major recognized pain point for an established company, they will buy from you now, or at least engage seriously now. Not maybe, possibly years down the line after enough coffees. Networking should never, ever be allowed to replace robust sales pipeline management, disciplined forecasting, or that strategic sales and operations planning process. Those are the real engines of predictable growth.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. Synthesize it for the executives listening. The core conclusion here seems incredibly sharp, very clear. General networking, the breakfast club kind, it's primarily a function for micro businesses trying to establish a local presence. That's its strength. But true growth, achieving scale, winning those larger, complex B2B contracts, that requires a structured sales process, a laser-focused strategy, and yes, the organizational courage to sell directly to the economic buyer. And I love this distinction from the source. Networking might keep you busy. Selling will make you successful.
Perfectly put. And maybe the final thought for listeners is this. If your sales process is genuinely compelling, if your value proposition really does solve immediate expensive problems for your target market, and if you've equipped your team with the right tools and training for structured professional outreach, then what excuse is actually left for your team to avoid picking up the phone, sending that targeted email, and starting that high-value conversation? Often, it boils down to overcoming that fear of selling. That's frequently the single biggest barrier between where a company is now and achieving genuine, scalable sales success.
Don't let passive activity kill proactive strategy. That seems to be the takeaway. So if you are an executive, a sales leader, and you're ready to dive deeper into the tactics, the structure needed for professional outreach, for maximizing real sales success, we definitely encourage you to explore the specialized resources that are available from the sales experts. They offer much more strategic guidance on exactly these topics.